Today we're going to get into the latest news for Rivian. As they're scaling up production, they have a lot of things going on and a lot to look forward to in the future. Today we'll be talking about their record-breaking quarter, leases coming soon that make them tax credit eligible, and everything we know about their next generation vehicles. So let's get into it. First up today, Rivian just had a record-breaking quarter, beating a lot of other startups in registrations. They now make up 2.8% of the overall EV market in the US, with 18,359 new R1S and R1T registrations from January to July of this year. 7,611 of those were the R1T, and 10,748 were the R1S. They seem to be getting a lot more orders for the R1S than the R1T, with the S representing 70% of the R1 units they built for Q2. The R1T was beat by the Ford F-150 Lightning, which had 11,883 registrations. That's at least in part because Ford slashed prices by up to $10,000 to boost their sales there. That truck now starts at $51,990, with the R1T starting at $74,800. Focusing on their successes though, Rivian exceeded Q2 production estimates and have therefore raised their guidance for the year up to 52,000 units. CEO RJ Scaringe said the company has, quote, rounded the corner, meaning they're past the hardest part of scaling. Part of that success comes from increased efficiency at their plant in Normal, Illinois. That also raised their gross profit per vehicle delivered by $35,000 last quarter. They're still beating Lucid, VinFast, and Fisker, who have had 3,789, 170, and 37 registrations this year so far, respectively. Although Rivian is second to their main competitor, it's sounding like new innovations to their production processes are about to make their factories a lot more efficient. At the same time, Rivian has seen a big shift to their SUV. In Q1, 75% of production was for the R1T, but demand has shown the opposite, 75% demand for the R1S. Now, as we just talked about, they're in the process of shifting in order to catch up specifically on R1S demand. This is the stuff that leads to true production scaling, and Rivian is focusing on it. It's great to see. Next up today, Rivian currently makes one of the only electric pickup trucks available today, only really competing with the Ford F-150 Lightning right now. The only other options that are available to buy now are only being made in limited numbers. With the introduction of the Tesla Cybertruck coming soon though, Rivian will have to find new ways to grow amid new competition. That's where their new Rivian R2 comes in. Their current lineup consists of the R1T, R1S, and an electric delivery van. They released their first vehicle, the R1T, in September of 2021. It was the first fully electric pickup truck on the market and now starts at $73,000. For that price, it gets 270 miles of range, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and 533 horsepower. From there, you can upgrade to performance dual motor or quad motor all-wheel drive. Then for the dual motor powertrains, you can choose between 3 battery sizes, getting up to 400 miles of range with the largest. Also in 2021, they began delivering EDVs to Amazon. Available in 3 sizes, the largest has 900 cubic feet of storage space. Then in December of 2021, they began delivering the R1S, a large 3-row SUV that's slightly shorter than the R1T. It starts at $78,000 today with a 260-mile range, but the same 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds and 533 horsepower as the base R1T. From there, you can upgrade to performance dual motor or quad motor all-wheel drive. Right now on their shop, you can only go to the large pack battery with 340 miles of range, but the max pack is expected soon. The first time we heard the R2 mentioned was in 2018, when the R1T debuted at the LA Auto Show. At the time, Rivian's CEO, RJ Scaringe, hinted that they would be working on a sort of high ground clearance rally car. Then in 2020, rumors started to go around that Rivian was working on a cross between a station wagon and crossover utility vehicle. It was called the R2R and would reportedly have 500 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a quad motor option. I doubt this model will actually have a quad motor option though, being their more affordable model. Rivian has also said their dual motor configurations already pack enough punch to handle most jobs, so 4 motors is overkill. Then, of course, Rivian hit a lot of production delays in 2020, just like everyone else. Marques Brownlee interviewed RJ Scaringe, who revealed they were not only working on the new R2 platform, but also an R3 platform. Reportedly, Rivian has already moved to trademark 6 names for upcoming vehicles, but for now, let's focus on the R2. He said R2 will, quote, continue to take the essence of what they've done with the R1S R1S and R1T, meaning it will have ample storage space and remain refined and fun at the same time. It'll just be in a smaller form factor. What usually comes with cutting costs, though, is cutting features. Scaringe warned, on a vehicle with a cost target, you have to decide where you're going to spread your investment. There's a complex web of trade-offs that have to be figured out in order to bring this car to market at a much reduced cost while keeping it appealing to customers. Obviously, they can't offer a new vehicle with all of the same features as the R1T or R1S at a much reduced price. Their current goal is to see where they can make cuts to reduce price without making the car feel stripped down. In May of this year, Rivian officially teased the R2 for the first time. In this video, Scaringe and Rivian's chief design officer stand in front of a covered-up clay model. From what we can see, it's a much smaller vehicle than the R1S, but keeps the same boxy design language. They confirm in this video that it won't be shipping with tank turn, a feature that would allow the vehicle to turn in place on soft surfaces. That's because it would be too destructive to natural trails, which is against the company's overall ethos. At a conference in June, Rivian's CFO, Claire McDonough, shared that this vehicle will be officially unveiled in 2024, and they plan to launch it in 2026. She said the design is just about finished, so any tweaks we see from here on out could be seen on production models. She also added that the R2 would target the SUV and crossover market and be priced between $40,000 and $60,000. Part of how they plan to get there is by renegotiating with their suppliers. More affordable vehicles are more scalable, meaning this could become one of their main profit centers. McDonough maintained that the vehicle's technology will still be what sets it apart in the market, so it'll likely have a lot of cool features. She also noted that their R1 model's distinctive styling is their advantage, making them instantly recognizable on the road. Quote, "I think the opportunity we have is to continue to allow R2 to stand out and lean on some of that success that we've brought to market. I personally hope that that means this new car will have the same cartoon eye headlights that we're used to seeing." Lastly, she hinted the R2 SUV may be accompanied by a pickup truck built on the same platform, making it much smaller than the R1T. The renders of the R2 so far are very much based on the R1S, and there haven't really been any leaks from Rivian on this front. Here's one from CarBuzz. Essentially, it's the same car with some smaller aspects to it, but would be very functional for many. Here's another from Motor Trend with the same basic idea, but I imagine that Rivian will distinguish this new car much more than these renders are showing us. The photo that Rivian shared of them standing in front of the clay model, which was covered up, shows a pretty distinct size difference, leading many to expect it to look a bit more like the Ford Bronco Sport. This could definitely fit the bill, but when walking the R2 covered up into their design studio, it appears to be fairly low to the ground. This has led to renders like this one from Car Scoops. It takes the Rivian design but brings it lower to the ground while keeping an SUV shape. This would help increase aerodynamics and make this a much sportier car, which seems to be where Rivian is headed. Ultimately, functionality is great, but efficiency will likely play a big part in getting costs down. Better efficiency leads to a better range on a smaller battery pack. Right now, the aim seems to be around a 300-mile range for all EVs, and the R2 is expected to land right in there. Most are hoping for faster charging at the same time as well. A starting price of $40,000 would make the R2 start well below their R1 series and put it in line with the Tesla Model Y and others. The Model Y currently starts around $50,000 with a 300-mile range, but we do expect this to change quite a bit by the time the R2 comes around. That car currently qualifies for the full $7,500 federal tax credit though, bringing the effective price down to around $40,000 depending on if you get it in inventory or not. So will the new R2 model qualify for the same amount? In April of this year, the IRS updated the qualifications to include critical mineral and battery component requirements. That means the R1S and R1T only qualify for half the credit, $3,750, because their battery materials aren't sourced in a qualifying area. So we could assume the R2 will also only qualify for half unless Rivian moves, changes, or gets new suppliers. Rumor has it, though, that the R2 will be using specifically domestically made batteries for this purpose. Quote, "The R2 will be eligible for the entire $7,500 credit, potentially driving down the price even more." For charging, it's sounding like the R2 will ship with a different charging connector than Rivian's current models on the road. In June, Rivian announced that they had signed an agreement with Tesla to allow Rivian drivers to access Tesla's supercharger network. Next year, they'll be making an adapter that will allow the R1T and S to access Tesla superchargers, and moving forward, the actual charge port will change. Quote, Rivian will incorporate North American Charging Standard, NACS, charge ports as standard in future R1 vehicles starting in 2025, as well as in its upcoming R2 platform. They're continuing to expand their own Rivian Adventure network at the same time, but it's unclear if new Adventure network charging stations will be equipped with NACS as well, or if these new vehicles will need an adapter to access them. Either way, unless they update them all, you'll need a CCS adapter to access the older ones. When this car does get released, we can expect a launch edition R2 to come out first in typical Rivian fashion. Then later, more affordable trims should follow suit. But how do they plan to cut between $10,000 and $20,000 off the price? During their last earnings call, Scaringe revealed what some of their specific goals are for production. They plan to cut the number of electronic control units, or ECUs, within the vehicle by 60%, which will in turn reduce the car's wiring harness length by 25%. That will significantly reduce the materials needed to produce the vehicle while decreasing complexity, which will drastically decrease costs on their end. They can then pass those savings down to the customer. The R1S and R1T are great vehicles, but very much exist like Tesla's Model S and X. The real turning point for Tesla was the release of the Model 3, and their progress since scaling that vehicle. The new R2 is expected to be Rivian's Model 3 moment, and definitely will be a turning point for the company. Next up today, at Morgan Stanley's 11th annual Laguna conference recently, Rivian's CEO mentioned they may start soon offering a lease option for their vehicles. So far, Rivian has intentionally held off on leasing, quote, because of its confidence in its vehicle's residual values. So far, they've seen the used marketplace as a healthy check of their pricing, sometimes indicating that demand is higher than supply, or they could price their cars higher. Based on the strong market value they've seen over the last 6 to 12 months, this should lead to exceptionally strong leasing packages. One added benefit for leasing is the tax credit. We just talked about Rivian only partially qualifying, but there is a loophole involving leasing, which would allow customers to take full advantage of the full $7,500 US EV tax incentive on any leased vehicle. Quote, it works great for leasing, $7,500 does work. And this will lead to some interesting ways to access more price incentives for customers. At that same event, he also said updates regarding their next-gen R2 will also come in the first half of next year, including new features and cost-saving programs. The factory where this new vehicle will be produced will be entering construction in Georgia around the same time. Next up today, regarding software, Rivian regularly rolls out over-the-air software updates for their vehicles to improve vehicles remotely. Sometimes brands say that they do this and then release updates on rare occasions, but Rivian has definitely taken after Tesla here. They are regularly improving their vehicles through software, and the latest update actually brings a huge unexpected improvement. In their most recent update, they were actually able to improve the ride quality of both the R1T and R1S. They say they've improved the feel of all drive modes and ride heights, reducing the impact of driving over sharp objects, as well as bumps and dips. Among other improvements, they added a screen cleaning feature that disables all the screens so you can clean them without pressing buttons. I found this especially helpful in a Tesla, so it's good to see it on Rivian's as well. Some other small updates include a 25% range loss improvement during sleep when Gear Guard is disabled or set to off, some infotainment glitch fixes, and the ability to select a drive mode while planning a trip in the Rivian mobile app. This will give you the most accurate trip estimate possible. Of course, once the R2 is released, it'll also be receiving any new updates automatically. Last up today, Rivian is gearing up to roll out dual motor configurations of the R1T and R1S. Scooter Dahl from Electrek was able to test drive a dual motor R1T, and it seems to deliver Rivian's promise to do everything for most customers. Their first mile adventure test track included a rough road, a dry creek bed, 2 tilted turns, and a steep uphill climb. On top of its 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, it was able to handle all of that with ease. The quad motor gets a quicker 0 to 60, but his opinion is that it really wasn't necessary. I actually have an R1S on order, and Rivian offered me the option to switch to the performance dual motor instead of the quad motor I originally had ordered. Since it's made in-house at Rivian, is more efficient, and was $500 off, and these reviews are coming in saying it's great, I actually decided to switch my order. They also said by switching I should be able to take delivery this year, but now they've given me the link for the R1 shop where I can choose an inventory R1S to come within 3 to 6 weeks. Funny thing is, these are all quad motor. Rivian has also rolled out their Max Pack configuration that gets 410 miles of range. Their Large Pack gets 352 miles, but now customers have an option that's even more impressive, which they can get for as low as $89,000. That's about $10,000 more than the Large Pack on the R1T. It looks like Rivian's infamous powered tonneau cover may be coming back. When this tonneau cover first came out, it had a lot of issues and was eventually taken off the R1T. Now, details on Rivian's Gear Shop page suggest it could be coming back next year. After configuring an R1T, customers may be able to select a model with a tonneau cover, depending on their area. They say the manual tonneau will be purchasable in Gear Shop later this year, and will be adding powered tonneau to Gear Shop in early 2024. Hopefully this means that they can finally replace all of the terrible old power tonneau covers that many customers still have. That's all the latest Rivian news for today, so if you want to see my full 1-year review of the R1T, make sure you're subscribed to see that one coming up soon. In the meantime, if you want to see why charging in a Rivian isn't great right now, but will change soon, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.